Welcome back. I'm Lauren Karasek, and this is part 2 of our best practices for corporate and issue-based clients on Twitter. In our part 1, we talked a lot about establishing your persona on Twitter and creating the look and feel of your profile and your profile description. In this segment, we're going to talk more about the content of your tweets and best practices there. So let's jump to it. A lot of people struggle with this right here, this 140 character limit. It is difficult for us to compress a message into 140 characters, especially those of us who are used to working on corporate public relations, where we have very specific ways of saying things. So it is important to cater your messaging to the medium that you're working in. And it's also important to understand that abbreviations are a part of Twitter as a medium, and it's an acceptable way to interact, even though I know it makes a lot of clients, corporate issue-based, who are used to issuing press releases and things like that, feel like they're trying to be young or using what they call text speak. Here, it's an acceptable and an important way to save space when you're delivering a message. So what are some things you can use? You can turn "and" into an ampersand. You can turn "with" into w/. Here's where I lose a lot of people. You can turn "you" into the single letter "u." In this medium, even coming from a corporate or issue-based, very well-respected entity, it is completely acceptable to speak this way. R can be R, before can turn into before. There are several more abbreviations like this, and it is perfectly acceptable socially in this medium to use them. Another thing to do to keep it short is to provide a little bit of elaboration and then link back out to a link to maybe your blog post where you further go into detail about what you're talking about, or a news story. One news story I've been keeping up with is Rick Sanchez being fired from CNN over his remarks regarding Jon Stewart. So maybe I want to tweet to my followers about this, and I copy the link. When we look at this in Twitter, it's an incredibly long link, and it leaves us only 25 characters to express our opinion about the news story. That's not going to work for us, obviously. So instead, we're going to go ahead and copy that again and use a link shortening service like bit.ly here. That's bit.ly. You go ahead, put in your long link, and it spits back out a much shorter and easier to work with one. So we go back to Twitter, paste that in, and now instead of 25 characters, we have 119 characters to express our opinion on the link. Shortening is a must. Why is that? Not only so that you can fit into the 140 characters, but also because, if at all possible, you want to leave room. And here's why. Fake AP Stylebook, which is something that I follow, it's fake grammar rules, very funny, is saying use gray to describe a color, gray with an A, or gray with an E to describe a hue. Ironic, funny tweet that I might want my followers to read. Now, I could simply retweet it by pushing retweet right here, and it won't take up any extra characters on my part. But if I want to elaborate on it, what I might do is copy the content, say RT at fake AP stylebook, that's the attribution, and then paste their content. And I might add a humorous comment before, like, so because they didn't use all their space, they gave me the opportunity to ask them a question, a humorous question back, and I'm still not using all the space, which will allow them to converse back with me. It facilitates the conversation. If you absolutely can't get everything you have to say into 140 characters, that's fine, but you can do a series of tweets on the same issue, 1 second after another. But what you want to make sure is that each tweet is its own soundbite that can stand on its own, so that people can retweet any single one of the things that you say and don't feel like they're missing the context. Last but not least, when we talk about best practices, let's talk about integration. The whole point of being on Twitter is to find a new audience. And social media users are not all one audience. There's a common misperception out there that the people on Facebook are the same people on Twitter, are the same people on YouTube. And that's not quite true. Everyone has their own platform that they prefer. So what you want to make sure that you do is make sure that your website points to all of your social media platforms, that your social media platforms point back out to your website, and we talked about this in best practices part 1. You can see that my website linked here. When you do a blog post, you want to make sure that you tweet that out to your followers